people, how you doing? Hope you're having a fantastic damn day. Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be discussing how you can start off a realistic Inter Milan career mode in the game FC24. Of course, obviously in videos like this we discuss certain tactics, how you should look to try and, target certain transfer targets, where you should try and send your scouts potentially to find that good young talent for the future, and just how you should look to try and run the team going forward. If you can, as always, it's always appreciated. Please smash that like button if you are new to the channel and you like content like this. Hit that bell notification and don't forget to subscribe while you're there. That would be absolutely fantastic. Now, let's hop on straight into the video. Now, taking a look at the finances, yes, we're starting off in a slightly different direction, but having a look at the finances, more or less, Inter Milan start off with around 102 million euros to spend. That's right, I've also finally changed the currency to actual euros because that is a more realistic aspect to try and use. But yes, you start off with around 102 million euros. Now that's a lot of money and somewhat unrealistic. I mean, I know currently Inter Milan are somewhat struggling for financial fair play, with financial fair play issues, and they obviously are trying to bypass it with certain signings, signing free players. So 102 million is a lot of money, and I would probably suggest if you guys are looking for a realistic build and a realistic career mode, don't use a lot of that. Maybe use like 30 million at most, because like I say, in real life Inter Milan are struggling with financial fair play rules. So taking a look at a realistic youth scouting network that you should try and use as much as possible, especially with those financial fair play rules that they are infringing upon. So in order to bypass those, you find the good young talents in the world. And I will say this, recently they have set up a youth academy in the likes of Canada. So that's why I would set up a scouting network there, as well as the likes of Argentina. Of course, they do have some really good Argentinian players, Lautaro Martinez being one of them. And I would look to try and also get as much good young talent from that region of the world. And when that 9-month contract is finished, target the likes of Uruguay. They also are looking in that area as well. And then, of course, I've gone with Italy. You are an Italian-based club, so you should look to try and sign Italian-based young players. So now it's time for another shameless plug moment, but we have created and replicated Inzaghi's 3-1-4-2 system in the game FC24. If you haven't seen it, I will link it for you at the end of this video, so go check that out. It always goes a nice long way in obviously replicating that environment of a realistic career mode build. So I would implore you go and have a look at that video and implement it into your career mode. So taking a look at the squad, starting off with the goalkeepers, of course, Jan Sommer, Di Gennaro, and of course, a man on loan from Sampdoria in Adero, or Odoro, I don't know. But he is 26, he is 79 overall, he is Italian, doesn't have a real face though, but he could be the future goalkeeper for your team if you decide to make that transfer a permanent one. Of course, you will also see there is a running theme with this Inter Milan squad that a lot of their good players are loan players in from other teams. So it's a nice issue to have. It's a different issue to have as well. But at the end of season number 1, beginning of season number 2, you won't have a whole host of your players that you would have more so used throughout the course of season 1. So either you have the option of replacing them or potentially bringing them back on permanent deals. None other than this man right here, Emil Odero. As you can also see here, they've got 3 goalkeepers out on loan. Stankovic, Brazio, as well as Radu. I would look to try and sell majority of them, recoup some of that money, invest it back into the squad. Maybe you can find some funds to obviously get the likes of Odero back on a permanent deal. But of course, you do have 100 somewhat million, but at the same time, if you're looking for that realistic aspect, financial fair play is a real thing, if that's what you're trying to obviously replicate. Only, use around 30 to 40 million of that budget, trying to, create those realistic parameters for your career mode. As you'll see here, the likes of DeMarco, a very, very good wing-back / left midfielder, can also play as a centre-back, which is quite nice. I didn't realize that. He's recently gotten his new face. Now, normally I would say don't sell him. He's a very good player. You should try to build the team around him. He should be a cornerstone for the side. But if you are looking at the financial fair play aspects, if a team comes in with a massive offer of 70, 80, 90 million euros, the likes of Inter Milan will never stop a player from leaving then. And that's a very realistic move that the board tend to do. I mean, Achraf Hakimi, they wanted him, they needed him, they wanted to keep him as best as they possibly could, for as long as they could. But then the likes of PSG came in and offered, I think it was like 60 or 70 million. So Inter Milan were like, okay, we have no choice. Financially, we need to do it. And they made the move happen. And therefore, Hakimi was gone, and they replaced him with the likes of Cuadrado. They replaced him with the likes of Denzel Dumfries. So there's always opportunities in the market for you to try and exploit, even if you do lose one of your best players. And talking about DeMarco, you've also got some really good young players in the likes of Benjamin Pavard and Bastoni. Now, Bastoni, I would say, is a no-go. You should probably look to try and keep him as long as possible. Build the team around him. Eventually make him the captain of Inter Milan. Lead this team to victory with him being the spearhead at the back, holding down the back line as much as possible. But as you will also see here, Darmian, 33, final 12 months of his deal. Acerbi, recently signed, but he's 35. The likes of Stefan de Vrij, he's 31, aging. So they do have a somewhat aging backline. You've got the likes of Pavard and Bastoni. Pavard in the prime of his career, Bastoni approaching that. I also heard a weird stat the other day. Apparently, Bastoni has created, or he's at least like top 3 in this Inter Milan side in terms of creating chances for his teammates, which I think is crazy. As a centre-back, being able to do that is insane to me. But anyway, we progress. So they've recently also signed this man right here, Besic. I don't know where they signed him from. I don't want to lie and say they signed him from this team, and I don't know. But also, 22 years of age, German, centre-back, does have a high potential as well. Doesn't have a real face, which does bug me a little bit. But nonetheless, maybe he could be a cornerstone for the future of this career mode. As for the likes of Buchanan now, I did mention this, they signed a young Canadian player. He's a good backup for the likes of Dumfries or potentially the likes of Cuadrado. Now, Cuadrado, of course, is up there in age, so more so he will retire within the first season or so. So you'll have the likes of Dumfries and Buchanan to fill that role for the future. As you can see at the likes of Denzel Dumfries, who can also play as a centre-back, by the way. A very effective centre-back, might I say. And then we've got the likes of, on loan, Carlos Augusto, a backup for the likes of DeMarco. Also, really good signing to potentially bring back for season number 2. I don't think you can go wrong with it. He is quite young, 24 years of age, from Brazil. On loan from Monza, though. But how much would that cost? Would you be breaking those, financial parameters that you're setting? I don't know. It will have to be a very hard and tough decision for you to make. And that's what's makes these things so interesting, because you can maybe find a free agent that can do just as good of a job as providing as what Carlos Augusto can. So maybe you can find somebody in the free agents market. Of course, you got the likes of Klaassen, Çalhanoğlu, Barella, Sensi. Sensi is an odd one. I think he might actually be leaving. I think Inter Milan are looking to try and get him out the door, sell him, recoup some of that money, and then obviously look to try and buy Fratesi. Now, this is a man I would 100% say you have to have in your squad. He's got a massive potential. He's 23. He is Italian. For season number 2, he should be your number 1 target to try and secure for the future. Of course, you've still got this man right here, the Albanian Aslani, I think that's how you pronounce it. Also a very talented player. Like I say, he's 21, he can play as a DM. But speaking of DMs, you'll see this team is very much lacking in the DM departments, which is also very odd because they naturally play with a 3-1, and that 1 is now Çalhanoğlu, who, in my opinion, is doing a very good job running the phases of play, making sure he is, having that midfield ticking over very effectively. But I don't think he's a natural DM. Obviously, he's doing a good job there, but maybe you should look to try and sign a more naturally suited player to the system. So that could be an area that you try and target going forward. Obviously, we spoke about Juan Cuadrado, and as you can see right here, he is retiring at the end of the season. So use him for the first season, get the best out of him, rotate him with the likes of Dumfries and Buchanan, try and grow Buchanan as much as possible to be the natural replacements for the Colombian. But again, he is retiring, so it's another aspect of the squad. You have quite a few aging players that are either decreasing in value or retiring at the end of the season that you are going to try and have to replace going forward. As you'll also see here, moving into the front line, on loan from Bologna, Arnautovic will be going back. I don't think that they will look to try and make that deal permanent, as well as the likes of Joaquim Correa. I would look to try and sell him when he does come back to the team. Sanchez as well in the final 12 months of his deal. I know he is linked with a move to Saudi Arabia. I don't know exactly if it's going to go through or not, but I know he is linked with a move, so therefore I've put him on the transfer list. And then you've got your front two, which is Thuram and Martinez, who have done very, very well this season, have led them to their first trophy of the season as well. The other day, they won against Napoli 1-0. This man scoring the winner. Obviously, looking for subtle replacements for them, more so Thuram than the likes of Lautaro Martinez. That is the goal going forward. You are going to try and target the striker department, because eventually the likes of Sanchez and Arnautovic, they're going to be gone. So you need at least an adequate backup for them. And then finally, just having a look at this man right here, Satriano. Now, the only reason I am actually talking about him is because he is and does have a real face. He is 22 years of age. He doesn't have the highest overall, but for season number 2, he can come in and be a very good bench striker, rotational piece for your front line. So before we get into the shortlist of actual players that Inter Milan are linked with, it's always nice to try and use your scouting system to the best of your ability. And I've gone ahead and created four sets of different instructions that I think would help you in the future. So for the first one, I've gone with a first team quality prospect potential looking for, age 22 to 28, so either approaching the prime of their career or they've just entered it, of course, in the final year of their deal. That way you can sign them at a cheaper rate or potentially as a free agent in the summer. The same would apply to this set of instructions, 30 to 35, final year of their deal, first team quality, of course, either as a free agent or at a cheaper rate. A defensive midfielder now is very, very important. They can either be first team quality, world-class prospects, or potentially world-class. Now, things do get a bit sticky and spicy with the world-class approach because obviously you're going to be paying a premium amount of money. But at the same time, if you can more or less try and sell players, have that money, try and recoup it and put it back into the squad, I would then suggest you go and sign up a world-class defensive midfielder because that can go a very long way in progressing your team in trying to win either the Champions League or the Serie A or something along those lines. And then finally, a striker, looking for either a 22 to 30-year-old player. The contract length doesn't overly matter, and I would imagine that your scouts would have found players in the final years of their deals with the other instructions. But most importantly, the player needs to either be first team quality, a backup, or potentially a first team prospect. That way you can try and grow and develop them for the future of your career mode. So just taking a look at some of the players that I've put on this transfer list, they have been linked with a move in real life to the likes of Inter Milan, so be sure to try and, take a look at least some of them. The likes of Trevor Chalobah, I mentioned him yesterday for the AC Milan career mode. He is linked with a move away from Chelsea, and there are a few clubs, Bayern Munich were looking at him in the summer, but now it's more or less, the Italian clubs are now looking at him. He can play a whole host of different positions. Obviously, centre-back, right-back, DM, can be the natural replacement, potentially, for Hakan Çalhanoğlu. Does have a few good playing styles as well, intercept and slide tackle. I think as a right-back, or maybe even a right-sided centre-back, he could be a very, very impactful player for this Inter Milan team. As for the likes of Scalvini, of course, he is 19, doesn't have a real face, which does suck, but he can come into the side and grow with the team, be a nice, adequate backup for the first season or so, with the likes of Besic. Also has a few good playing styles, intercept and bruiser. For me personally, I would, if you do buy him, position him in the centre-back role. I think, he's a very good tall player, can win those aerial duels very effectively, can play out from the back very quickly and also very effectively. So I think he could be a very good hand-in-glove type fit for this Inter Milan team. Onto the likes of Petro Zielinski, linked with a move away from Napoli to the likes of Inter Milan, 82 overall. He will cost a lot of money, but I think he could be a very good, adequate replacement for the likes of Hendrik Mkhitaryan. Same can be said for this man right here, Kolpani, linked with a move to the San Siro as well. And you will also see that both the Milan teams as well as Monza have a very good relationship. They've loaned in players, they've loaned out players. So I think it wouldn't be so far-fetched that you try and sign this man up. Now, it does say he is a centre forward. It takes between 2 to 4 weeks to change him to a central midfielder. And again, he could be an adequate replacement for Hendrik Mkhitaryan, for one of your aging stars in the side, specifically in the midfield. And now onto your strikers, we've got the likes of Taremi, Kelechi Iheanacho, Guirassy, and Goodmanson. Now there's 4 options here. Taremi as well as Iheanacho are both in the final 12 months of the deal. So either you can sign them in January on a pre-contract, or you can try and target them initially and obviously sign them up as a much cheaper backup option for your side. The likes of Guirassy, in real life, of course, he does have that 15 million euro or pound release clause, and that is something that Inter Milan would aggressively try and target. Now, obviously in FC24, he will be slightly more expensive, but nonetheless, he can be a very good, adequate physical backup striker for the likes of Thuram. Now, I think a really good striker to back up Lautaro Martinez would be this man right here, Goodmanson. He does have some really good play styles that also replicate and replicates what Lautaro Martinez can do on the field. Technical dribbler, trivela passing and shots, as well as a flair player. So he could be a very good, adequate backup for the likes of your captain, Lautaro Martinez. And there you have it, guys. That is how I would start off a realistic career mode with the likes of Inter Milan, who you should look to sign, who you should look to get rid of, where you should look to try and send your scouts, and who you should look to try and target. If you have enjoyed this video and you do enjoy content like this, please hit that like button down below. YouTube, does that algorithm thing that is, very positive for me. But most importantly, my dudes, I hope you have a damn great day. We do have a tactics video coming out later on, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But yes, I'm out.